The Uganda Parliamentary Press Association has today held a dialogue at Parliament ahead of the World Press Freedom Day, that is on 3rd May 2025. The dialogue brought together members of Parliament, former journalists, heads of media organizations, and other key stakeholders to discuss the various challenges faced by journalists in their profession, particularly in light of the recently concluded Kawempe North by-election. Honorable Hamson Obua, the government chief whip, addressed the media on the issue of freedom of speech and its accessibility in the country.
There is freedom of speech, but I cannot guarantee freedom after speech. And I believe if he was still the one pretending over the country by the time I entered, and I found my good brother, the Honorable Semuju, on the floor, I do not know whether his right after speech would be guaranteed. But under this arrangement, his right of speech is guaranteed.
However, Solomon Serwanja, the executive director of the African Institute for Investigative Journalism, reflected on the events of the recently concluded Kawempe North by-election, highlighting the brutality faced by journalists. He expressed concern over the lack of accountability for those responsible, attributing it to the broader issue of limited press freedom in the country.
When the media, which is supposed to truly reflect what society is, usually they call it a mirror. This is what society is. But because you're suffocating this bird, this mirror is increasingly getting crushed and representing a distorted image of the community that we live in.
Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda urged journalists to stand firm as the country heads towards the 2026 general elections. He also cautioned that various challenges are likely to arise during the electoral process.
I mean, even a by-election 2 kilometers from the state center, people can be beaten the way they were beaten. I remember 2006 election, the Honorable Livingstone Okero was representing Chua. He was beaten, his people were beaten, but he's far away. He told his story after election. So really where we are now, I think we all prepare for the worst because it will happen.
On the other hand, Julius Muchunguzi, the head of public relations at the Electoral Commission, assured the safety of journalists in the upcoming general elections, provided the electoral process is considered safe and secure. He also called for a violence-free electoral process.
I would like us to see, or to say, and to commit that unless there is security for everybody in the electoral process, including the voters, including the candidates, including electoral officials, the journalists cannot be safe. So the call for violence-free elections and electoral processes does not start or stop with the practice of journalists or of journalism. We must be calling for security, for peaceful conduct, for non-violence across the country, across all actors in the electoral process.
The leader of opposition, Joel Senyonyi, questioned the Electoral Commission on their lack of action towards the brutalized journalists. He also urged the journalists to be brave and ensure that media freedom is emphasized.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we want a future where democracy thrives, we must defend the freedom of those who speak truth to power. Let us ensure that the press in Uganda is not silenced, sidelined, or shackled, but supported, protected, and respected. Because a free press is not the enemy of the state. It is the backbone of a just and democratic state.
Charity Ahimbisibwe, an election observer and chairperson Uganda Women Association, emphasized the role of journalists in the elections, citing that they play a key role.
So the role of the journalist cannot be more emphasized when an election is taking place in terms of promoting transparency, integrity, fairness, and credibility of an electoral process. Thank you.